Listen, there's a lot of stories that can be told, a lot of things that can be said, a lot of evil in the world, a lot of institutions which are said to be built in love and happiness and caring. That's not true. Don't believe everything that you hear or you see. Things can be deceiving. I've seen them with my own eyes. One time I thought I was looking at a green car, and as it drove past me, it turned purple. Was it pearlescent light? Was it a glitch in the Matrix? Was it me seeing something that wasn't there? I don't know. But I do know this. It's time for another episode of OmenG's Stupid, Scary Stories. It's March. We've already had a story in March. But we're going to have another story in March. Now, I want to tell you this, a disclaimer for this video. This story is going to be less stupid and more scary. As I said before, I am a fan of paranormal. I've dealt with paranormal instances in my life. You can choose to believe them or not believe them. But the story I am going to tell you now is about the Grove Street Cemetery. Yes, look it up. One of the oldest cemeteries in the country. Some people buried in this cemetery are the likes of Noah Webster, Thomas Hooker. People who wrote, signed documents that made this country a country. We're talking about these people have been buried there before the United States was the United States, when they were just colonies. I kid you not. Now, I went to a school as a guy, a young kid, and it was called Worthington Hooker School. Now, for a field trip, we went to the Grove Street Cemetery because Worthington Hooker was buried there. So they thought it would be a cool trip to go to a cemetery. Now, one of the things I liked about this school, besides that it was a public school, one of the best ones I think in the city of New Haven, it's very diverse. We did a lot of really interesting stuff. A lot of big partnership with Yale University. So we had access to their libraries, their old ancient texts, all this stuff. Anyway, back to the trip. I think we were in second or third grade. Second grade, yes. Mrs. Burns' class, Sally Burns. My first grade teacher was Miss Winokur. But Mrs. Burns went to the cemetery. You know, we paired up in groups, walked around. They showed us various gravestones and other things. Now, you're probably saying to yourself, it's a cemetery. Of course cemeteries are scary. What the fuck are you going to tell us about a cemetery that we haven't heard? What, did you see a ghost? Did you see something? No. I didn't see anything. It's what I felt. And you may think that I am joking. You could see the goosebumps that have popped up on my arm. You would know that I am not joking. I don't get goosebumps for no reason, but just thinking about this story gives me goosebumps. Because I have not stepped foot in this cemetery since I was in second fucking grade. I've walked past it. Begrudgingly. Didn't want to. It scared the shit out of me. Second grade trip, we get there, right? We're walking around, we're looking at all these different gravestones and shit. It's like, holy shit, this guy was here. Noah Webster, the dictionary dude, and different lawmakers and fucking people who signed fucking documents and the Declaration of Independence. All this shit is buried in this fucking graveyard, which had been moved, relocated to that point, somewhere else. I think it was downtown New Haven. So they removed these graves. Now, I'm pretty sure these ancient motherfuckers were not happy. Now, whether or not that is the reason why what happened to me is not one thing that I'm quite sure of. What I am quite sure of is that It scared me. It scared me terribly. And it started like this. We got to Worthington Hooker's grave. We were all standing around it, looking at it, and the dates and stuff. You know, young kids find that shit interesting because it's like looking into history when you see something 1635 to 1736. Like, holy shit, it's like 19 something. Wow, this is ancient, it's history. Which it is. It's history. It's ancient history. The history of our country. The history of people who came here to do what they wanted to do and murdered those who got in their way, whether they be Indians or other colonizers, settlers. We see these people as great, but we forget that in order to be great, sometimes some fucked up shit has to happen. But that's not the point. We're standing around this grave, you know, we're looking at it, and as the class left, I couldn't move. Couldn't explain why I couldn't move, but I just was stuck there. It was almost like I was fucking, you know, like just tantalized by this grave that I'm watching. You know, I'm just looking at this grave and I'm sitting here saying to myself, why can't I move? And I heard something. It was a whisper. It wasn't a voice. It wasn't anybody saying anything. In fact, I don't even know what they said. All I remember is hearing a whisper. And it wasn't from behind me. It wasn't from the side of me. It was like dead in front of me. And like for a moment, I immediately looked around, like, you know, second grade self, like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, who's whispering? Nobody was with me. You know, the group had started going off. And the teacher saw me standing there, right? Realized I wasn't with the group and started coming back to get me. She was yelling my name. Aris, what are you doing? And as I broke my gaze on this fucking tombstone, which I was staring at for some strange reason, and then looked over to my teacher, a force, I kid you not, like I said, you don't have to believe what I'm saying. I have no reason to make this up. I really don't. I have no footage to show. I have no, you know, marks on my chest to say, look, I got 3 scratches that I could have easily put there earlier today and now make them look like they're real. No, I can't do that. All I can tell you is what I felt and the fact that I'm still popping up goosebumps talking about this. And it's not cold in here. It's very sunny. It's warm. It's a nice day in March. And a force shoved me about 2 to 3 feet from where I was standing. I flew backwards, landed on my ass. Teacher saw me. She runs over to me. She grabs me by my arm. She's like, are you okay? Are you okay? And she's looking at the ground. It's flat. There's nothing to trip on. I didn't move except for to fly backwards. And she immediately grabbed me by my hand. Now, mind you, teachers don't usually touch you because they're not supposed to. She didn't say hush. She didn't say be quiet. She just hurried me away from there very quickly, as if she knew something. Maybe she saw something push me off the grave, because she looked really concerned when she came and picked me up. And she didn't say, what did you trip on? She's just like, let's go. And we went. And needless to say, shortly afterward, the trip was concluded. Like I said, I don't know if she saw something. I know what I felt. I know that something did not want me standing there. And I have to assume it was Mr. Hooker, because it was his grave I was standing at. Now, I tried to do some research on Mr. Hooker to see if maybe he had a problem with black people. I mean, maybe he was a slave owner and didn't take too kindly to what he may have thought was a slave standing over his grave. Like, fuck out of here, nigger. What are you standing there for? Pardon my language. I'm just trying to be historically accurate. So if I offended anybody by calling myself a nigger, I'm sorry. But it's about the story. Look up Worthington Hooker. Look up Grove Street Cemetery. Look up whether people have said it's haunted. If they do, then good. If they don't, they're liars, because it is. Okay? You don't have that much death in history in a city that was literally built on top of other graves, and there's not going to be some kind of fucking haunting. I mean, downtown New Haven is some shit. I'm telling you, if you don't know about it, you need to find out. Like, shit happens down there. You've read about it. You heard about that fucking... I'll use that for one of my stupid scary stories, so I'm not going to tell you that one just yet. But back to the thing. We left the cemetery. For about 2 days after that, I kept having these terrible nightmares. I mean, I would wake up in the middle of the night screaming. My parents didn't understand what it was. They actually took me to see a therapist because it had gotten pretty bad. Like, you know, minus other things that I was probably going through at the time. This just compounded it. It was just like, whoa. It's terrible. Terrible. And I remember just not feeling right for about 2 weeks after that shit. I just didn't feel right at all. Felt terrible. Felt horrible. And I remember one day my grandmother saying something about me. Like I was speaking in sleep and I was saying things that didn't make any sense. Talking about stuff that I couldn't possibly know about. Shit she didn't even fucking know about. Talking about like something to do with the Native Americans, some kind of treaty or some murder. Briefly. And nothing was ever done about it. Nothing was ever looked into. It wasn't some serious shit. It was just what you would think as a kid talking. Like I said, I haven't done too much research on Worthington Hooker. I will eventually to find out just what stories I could find out about Mr. Worthington Hooker. But the next time you are going to a graveyard, cemetery, or any burial ground that is ancient, older than 100 and something years old, be careful. You don't know what the fuck forces you're stepping into. This is a realm that belongs to them. Honestly, the ground is theirs. Their souls may or may not roam these areas, depending on what you believe or don't believe. Whether you believe in God or not, you do have a soul. It's been proven that we lose, I think, 3.5 ounces of weight at death, and it's not attributed to piss or shit. It's attributed to something that we can't see. So maybe it's just the energy. Maybe electrical impulse has it. See, we as human beings, and as I talk about this metaphysical shit, I'm going to end this story because that is pretty much the end. I've told you about how he pushed me in the force. Now I'm going to explain to you why I believe that these forces exist. We, as human beings, are made up of more than one force of nature. Air that we breathe sustains us, right? But what is a force of nature? One that is stronger than any force out there. The only one still to this day that can only be harnessed by variables. And still in that sense, is not truly, we don't control it. It still controls us. It controls us more than anything. And that's electricity. A lightning bolt 10 times the heat of the surface of the sun. And this shit strikes Earth like it's nobody's business. People have been struck by lightning and lived. And some obviously died. Now, if you and I know, and we do know, that when your heart stops, they jolt you with electricity to get it started again. It's our lifeblood. Just like blood is our blood, electricity is our blood as well. And when the battery, that is the human brain, is not working anymore, that electricity dissipates. Therefore, could be the 3.5 ounces that leaves your body. If electricity, which is an unseen force at times, can shove your ass off of something, then if that electrical energy is left untapped, left in nature, and is its own entity, what's to say that it can't shove you wherever the fuck it wants to shove you? So for those doubters, touch something electrical and watch it shoot your ass back. And then imagine that you didn't touch anything at all and that force shot your ass back out of nowhere. It's possible. Thank you everyone for joining me for another episode of Stupid Scary Stories. Although this one wasn't as stupid as it was hopefully scary. And just prepare yourselves for another one. I think today, because I am depressed, that I'm going to continue and do a marathon of them. I will just record tons and tons of stories until I can record no more.